teachers, students. Come on, students. Come on. We are parents. Parents in the room. We are community members. We are Baltimoreans. We are all here to work together, to mobilize, to energize the city of Baltimore, to achieve our mission that all Baltimore students receive an excellent education. We focus on issues that matter to the students and the families. Tonight, we need to hear from the potential next governor. The next governor will play a vital role in helping city schools overcome the challenges that we're facing. It is important that we understand that these potential leaders view education in our city and hear how they intend to help our students prepare for the future.
There's no child in Baltimore City or no child in Maryland that should climb the ladder of opportunity by beating the odds. We can do better than that. We've got to ensure equity funding in every neighborhood school, in every community, in the city of Baltimore, in every county in the state of Maryland. That's our responsibility. Today, we invest 35% more in our schools than we did in 2007. The problem is, back in 2002 or so, when we passed the Thornton formula, we said we need to update it in 2012. 2012 has come and it's gone, and we haven't done that work. In this year's budget, there's $800,000 to perform the adequacy funding for our schools. It's long overdue, and I support it and that we get it done now.
Funding for buildings and funding for education is obviously the one thing we need to make sure we continue to do and enhance. And we need to make sure that we address the problems that we have here in Baltimore City in particular, because it's been left behind. It's been left behind in the sense that we have the #2 minority achievement gap in the United States. And we need to actually not sit around for 7 years and let that happen, but we need to address it. We also need to have adequacy in funding for all the underserved communities. It's not just Baltimore that needs to have that funding, but as part of the formula, it has to be considered, that has to be a major factor in the consideration for funding.
I believe that every one of our children has to succeed for our entire state to be successful. And our wealth formula is a critical component of that, particularly for the city. I've proposed in this governor's race that we bring about what I'm calling a Thornton 2.0 Commission. It's coming back to the original ideas that were advanced under the Bridge for Excellence program in 2002 that became known as the Thornton Commission. There are a number of factors that go into making sure we are adequately putting state investment into our school system, and having that Thornton 2.0 Commission is one way that I view that.
We strengthen our schools when we provide modern, technology-ready classrooms and facilities for the educators and the students in that school. We rolled out in the beginning of December our plan to move from $340 million a year, which is what we've been averaging, to $500 million a year so we can meet the needs of Baltimore City. Montgomery County's down because they've got a growing system. Prince George's County is underfunded, and Baltimore County is right behind all three of us. We're not going to be able to meet phase 2 in Baltimore City unless we move to $500 million a year. I've got a plan to do that. How are we going to do that? We're going to do it by leveraging our AAA bond rating. That gives us the ability to invest in infrastructure, to invest in our schools.
But in terms of funding streams, that's a big problem in the state of Maryland. So our economy and our jobs is a huge problem right now. We are losing our jobs to our neighboring states. We've lost 7,000 small businesses in the last 7 years. We've got 76% more people unemployed than we had 7 years ago. We have 4 Fortune 500 companies left in our state, and we've had 40 straight tax increases in the casinos coming in to try to solve the problem. So what we really need to do is focus on bringing jobs back to Maryland. We need to make sure that we bring cybersecurity, life sciences, manufacturing back to Maryland. All of that needs to happen so we can increase our economy, we can and have a bigger tax base so we can do things like fund the schools.
Our schools are the anchors of our neighborhoods. They draw resources in. When we rebuild our schools, we are able to think big about co-locating daycare centers, opening up the gymnasiums for community use, having after-school programs and recreational activities available at our schools. When we come together and do this in one big build, we not only address the need for 21st century learning centers for our children, we come up with approaches that are about improving and lifting up entire neighborhoods, entire communities, and turning around the middle class flight that has taken place in this city for way too long. This is one amazing city. We just have to have the political will to step up and take advantage of every opportunity that exists and invest in everything that is wonderful about Baltimore to help her live up to her full potential.
There is a difference between a student who enters kindergarten with an 8,000 word vocabulary and a 3,000 word vocabulary. We see that difference on display in kindergarten. We evaluate it by 4th grade, and by the time the 8,000 and the 3,000 vocabulary students graduate, their educational experience and their career opportunity are markedly different. Pre-K education closes that gap. We're talking about expanding universal pre-K to every Maryland 4-year-old, regardless of a family's ability to pay. Now, half day by 2018, we can do that with existing state revenues. How do we get to universal full day pre-K for every Maryland 4-year-old, where I would envision a more traditional funding model shared between state and city, state and county, like we do have for K through 12, so that the city isn't bearing the lion's share of that pre-K education.
The reason why I was the first candidate for governor, the first statewide elected official to come out for increasing pre-K from half day to full day and have it fully funded by the state was to address this very issue of the schools and the gap, the achievement gap that we have. I want to have universal voluntary pre-K around the state, and I understand that's an admirable goal and a laudable goal, and it's something that I talked about from the very beginning. My biggest focus is on the underserved communities. The way you fund it is through the table gaming and through the reforming our tax structure, reforming our jobs culture, and getting businesses to come back into the city and back into our state.
It still matters in Maryland what your socioeconomic status is, what your race is, to determine whether or not you're going to be successful in school. And it doesn't have to be that way. We know that when we invest in 0 to 5 initiatives from birth to age 5, we can eliminate the disparities and allow all of our children to enter school ready to learn at the same pace. My program would fix the subsidy, end the waiting list, and expand the coverage to families earning as much as $55,000 a year. And then we invest in quality after school and summer initiatives. I devote $70 million to quality after school and summer initiatives for our youth to serve 44,000 more kids in this state. And we have a dedicated revenue source to pay for all of it. If we legalize, tax, and regulate marijuana and treat it like alcohol and tobacco, we could generate $170 million a year in additional revenue. That's on top of the $280 million we save from our expenditures on the criminal justice side. It's going to cost more money. It's going to take a little more time. It takes more strategic and advanced thinking, but it will withstand all of the pressure from the big bad wolf.
Families want the same thing for their children. They want to live in a safe neighborhood with great schools and a clean environment, access to quality medical care. We all want to live in a society that is just, with a justice system that is fair. That's what we fight for every single day. We've increased our investments in the Baltimore City Public Schools over the last 7 years. And you know what? We have seen a return on that investment. Our students are performing better today than they were 7 years ago, and much better. We're making progress, but nobody sitting in this room believes that we're done with the work that needs to be done. So as a parent and as a public official, my commitment is to partner with you to make sure that every child in the state of Maryland, here in Baltimore City and anywhere else around the state, has access to a world-class education.
That it shouldn't matter what color your skin is, what your zip code is, that in some parts of our state you have access to a great education, and in other parts of our state you just don't have a chance. And for me, as being in public service these last 22 years, fighting for people for fairness, it's just a fundamentally unfair situation. I care about this city. I love this city. And it's been left behind, and we could do so much for the schools. It's funding on the outside, but it's also making sure that the good teachers are rewarded, and that we reward and we give extra compensation for teachers who are willing to come into underserved areas and teach. And we should be pairing up senior teachers with younger teachers. I remember Miss Cobb at Chevy Chase Elementary, and she was the teacher that got to me. She was the teacher that made me want to learn. And that's, and I think that's what we need to do. And I just want to thank you all first of all, for being here tonight, but also for caring so much about the Baltimore City educational system, and I look forward to being your partner in the years to come.
Some people run for governor because they want the job. Other people run because they want to do the job. I have spent my entire career bringing people together to get big things done. Whether it was an initiative to cover 50,000 more uninsured children in our state, whether it was working across party lines to pass a family planning expansion to give 35,000 more low-income women in the state access to free family planning services, standing up for our environment, making sure that we don't do like every other state and frack first and ask questions later to disastrous consequences. Our vision for the future of this state is one that is about tackling every single one of our issues with renewed vigor and purpose, with new ideas, with bold approaches, to stand up and fight for what we believe in, and to give you an option to choose something other than the status quo.